Good morning and welcome to today's Products in Focus. So looking at the US 30 there, you can see there we've tried to make a little bit of headway this morning, breaking above potential resistance at 17,738, just as the Asian markets have had a little shot in the arm, as China in particular is now at 7-year highs following on more stimulus packages and infrastructure projects being announced there at the weekend. Update from Janet Yellen on Friday during a speech gave extra credence to the idea that she did expect an interest rate rise to happen at some point this year, but be massively driven by macroeconomic data as ever, so they're tying themselves into quite an interesting area there. But we are just below the 55 period SMA. The other technicals are relatively neutral. Pressure will still remain. Most global equity markets are a little bit higher this morning, apart from the UK 100 that seems to be struggling a little bit as commodities turned south. Looking at this picture right here, you can see the volatile session we had there on Friday. We're actually a little bit in positive territory this morning, but I'll be interested to see if that continues on. 21 period SMA coincides nicely with the 6,900 level, which could be expected to act as potential resistance. You've got a crossover there on the MACD. Other technical indicators are relatively neutral, so for as long as we're trading below 69.6, this looks a little bit tough for it to break higher. Japan is benefiting from that move in China overnight. Volatile session again there on Friday, but still managed to eke out positive gains. Another bounce today, higher. Looks to be hugging that 21 period SMA. But we might come into a little bit of resistance around about 19,607, but we're not that far away from 20,000, which will of course be that big psychological level that many commentators in Asia will talk about if it gets broken. So dollar yen, the dollar actually has staged a little bit of a comeback versus some of the other FX pairs, but against the yen, because of the safe haven buying we did see there at the end of last week, you can see that at 119 as ever is the price seems to kind of oscillate quite nicely across there since November last year. And even though we had this hammer formation here on Thursday, it didn't exactly have a big massive turnaround the following two sessions, so that's inclusive of today. So that's Friday and that's today's, and we've got non-farm payrolls this Friday, and we've got a shorter week with all the holidays. So dollar yen probably going to continue to bounce around about 119 until we get non-farm payrolls out of the way. So then moving on to crude oil West Texas, coming off again there on Friday as oil inventory data adds weight, but the Iranian deal seems to be edging ever closer. So a lot of it, there's still a lot of ifs and buts, but should the end of sanctions happen, and there's still a lot of stuff for them to sort out, that will be a big flood of oil into the market at some point, and that's going to add a lot of extra weight on there. So $43.30 is still a longer term potential support, and that's quite a savage bearish engulfing candlestick pattern that we had there on Friday. So from a technical perspective, things don't look that great. So moving on to gold. Gold is getting hammered again. Big reverse from 12.18, and as that dollar begins to gain a little bit of extra momentum, people are taking some profit after this big move from here all the way up to the tip right here. 11.86 being the potential support level for us to look out for should gold continue its move to the downside. So finishing up with euro dollar and GBP USD, as you can see, 1.0786 looks to be the potential support level. That will also coincide with 21 period SMA, and the other technicals are relatively neutral, but there isn't a huge amount of economic data due out. We'll come back to that in a second. So finishing up with cable moving lower quite aggressively this morning. 1.4813 as ever has been a level we've talked about since all of March, coming into the final session of March there as well. It's looking like it could break it. It's really accelerating this morning, so watch for 1.4813 for a move lower. So looking at the market calendar, what's actually due out today? Well, we've got at 1 p.m. UK time, you've got German CPI and US housing data, and that will obviously be interesting for euro dollar. Fast forward on to Tuesday, you've got German retail sales and employment data, UK balance of payments and GDP, followed by Eurozone CPI and unemployment data. So a fair amount of inflationary related updates there, and obviously GDP will be quite important for cable as well. And then you've got CCI in the US, and then if we go into Wednesday, Chinese data, some more PMI stuff, lots more PMI as ever, and ADP private payrolls, and of course crude oil inventories. So keep your eye on the chart forum as ever, make insights part of the layer going forward, and join me again tomorrow to find out what happens next.